The advanced multi-coil test feature and reporting is available as a standard feature in the Model D and an optional feature in the Model B and Model C. In this case, we are using a 4 kV iTIG 4 Model D, and we're doing some testing on two different sized low voltage form coils. Expect to see a couple of differences just due to the shape and size differences, but they're both known good coils in general. The advanced multi-coil test feature and reporting is used for obviously testing form coils in a bench or a laboratory setting, and they're also used for testing coils after insertion in the stator slots. We also use the same software for testing on DC motors, more specifically DC armatures. So if you do bar-to-bar surge testing on the commutator, or span surge testing on the commutator, or winding resistance measurements bar-to-bar on the commutator, the same software is used for that purpose. The tester here, as mentioned, is a 4 kV unit. The same software, same procedure for testing and reporting is used for the 6, 12, and 15 kV versions, as well as power pack applications up to 40,000 volts. So to get started, we press Start on the screen, get to our customer directory. We already have the multi-coil example in our database. So if I select this line, we get the motor ID or serial number of this motor or coil set, along with all the other pertinent information. See in this video we have linked for how to do that setup. In this case, we're going to start a new test set. So we click Test. We're now in test mode. So again, if you have seen any of the other demonstration videos, this should be familiar. We will jump directly to the setup screen. At the top here, you see the high potence surge test voltage formulas. These are calculated based on the test stage formula. So if you click the drop-down menu here, you have a selection of predefined test stages with associated voltage formulas from ESA and IEEE. These are available in the BC and D models. It can be changed or added to in the D model. You can select any of these to use those standards, or you can click any of the white fields to override or change the formula, or just change the test voltage itself. In this example, we're just going to leave it to the default 2 times operating voltage plus 1000. So after you've defined your surge test voltage, jump directly to the surge screen. We see number 1 is highlighted green in the top right corner. Next step here now is to actually connect to the coils. So we have 3 high voltage leads labeled 1, 2, and 3. For a single coil testing like this, we obviously only need 2. So depending on which lead is highlighted green on the screen, that will be the one that's energized during the testing. So we will start with lead number 1. So lead number 1 will be connected to, let's call it the primary side. That's not the right word to use, but pick one side of the coil. And then we will connect lead 3 to the second side of the coil as our return. Lead 2 in this case will be disconnected internally and not used. And we have our ground clip. So if the coils are inserted in a stator slot, then you connect the ground clip to the frame of the motor. In this case, we're just added a little copper foil to the main insulation of the coil, and we'll clamp it on here. For a brand new coil, that might not be the best way to ground the main insulation, but maybe have a cradle or another ground plane you can connect it to. So we'll do it like that. Again, lead 1. Pay attention to what side of the coil lead 1 is connected to and what side lead 3 is connected to. And that'll play a great role as we move on to the next coils in the same coil set. We always want to test from the same side. So over to the tester again. Lead 1 highlighted green. We arm the instrument. It's now armed and ready to go. Make sure we don't touch the coil during the testing. Press the red button to run the first test. The instrument will then set the voltage scale and time sweep and then drive in the pulse train at our design test voltage. All right, so now we have the test done on the first coil in the coil batch. We don't necessarily know if this coil is the good coil or a bad coil. If you have suspicions of good versus bad, then pick a good one, because we're going to use this first test as the reference as we go through the rest of the coil set. So, test 1 is done. Great. Disconnect from the first coil, and then we move on to the second coil. In this case, I'm going to repeat the same test on the same coil a few more times so we can see how that works and get some good results. So again, disconnect. From here on out, we're going to use lead 2 and 3. So lead 1, disconnected, leave that somewhere else. Lead 2 will now be connected on the same side of the coil that lead 1 was connected to originally. So lead 2 to the first side of the coil, and then lead 3 to the second side of the coil. Again, don't forget your ground clip. Back to the instrument. To use or engage the advanced multi-coil test feature, click the coil symbol with the little arrow near the bottom left corner. Click that once. It will now display coil number 2 and select number 2 as the hot lead near the top right. So we're now ready to start our test. Arm the instrument, press the red button, and it now runs the test on lead number 2 and uses the first test as the reference. So as you're ready, again, disconnect from the second coil, connect to your third coil in the coil set. Click the next coil button, coil number 3. Number 2 is still highlighted green, so lead 2 is still our hot output lead. Arm the instrument, press the red button. And now you can continue to go through your entire coil set. One way to speed up and make this an even more efficient test process is to use a foot pedal. So you connect the foot pedal to the foot switch jack, and then you see the foot switch icon show up near the bottom right. We now click the next coil button, arm the instrument, and then you step and hold, or press and hold the foot switch to run the test. So press and hold, runs the test. As soon as you let go, it will actually increase the counter automatically, and it will also remain in the armed, ready to test mode. So now as an operator, you just move the test leads to the next coil, step away, press the button, runs the test, increases the counter automatically. Over to the next coil, press and hold, counter increases. So this speeds up the process dramatically. Hands-off operation. In the event that you have a fault, which we are going to show by connecting to our second coil here, moving our leads over. And again, we have our next coil already selected automatically. Press and hold the foot switch, runs the test, and we now get a 21% wave difference versus our first coil, the golden unit in this case, and a surge fail. So we know, okay, this is not a good coil. We move on to the next coil in the coil set. So back to this guy. And we continue our testing. This passed, which is good. Then we can do another test and another one. You obviously have to move the leads between each test set. All right, so as you're done with your test set, you can exit test mode, view and print reports. One thing we want to show before we do that is in the event that you made a misconnection, or you tested a coil twice, or you did something else wrong and you want to go back and repeat a test, you can always click the field that lists the coil number and say, okay, I want to actually retest coil number 5. So enter 5, hit enter here, and then repeat the test. Great, so now you've repeated the test on coil number 5. You can go back and say, okay, I want to pick up where I left off on coil number 12. Continue on with your testing. Okay, so let's say that we've tested the whole coil set at this point. We hit the folder button to exit out of test mode. Everything is automatically saved. Say view print past test. We now have a time and date stamp of every single coil in our coil set. So if we click the top left, we select everything in this coil set, click the bar chart icon, and it will now show you a bar chart, or a blue bar, representing the percent wave difference of that coil versus the master. So we see this tall blue bar, a little over 20%. That was when we tested the second coil in the coil set. Exit, print report. You have options to include different items here. For this example, we're just going to leave it at the default and then hit print. It'll now be stored on the instrument as a pre-formatted PDF. And that can include your company information, logo, contact info, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, hit the folder button to get back out to the customer directory. You now have the option of getting all the raw data and that printed report to your server or PC or wherever you want it, either using a flash drive or the optional network transfer feature over Wi-Fi or Ethernet.